Welcome everybody to today's webinar. I can see people joining. We're going to tell you today about how this autumn term has been going on Nature Park, now that we're into our second year, so we're a toddler now. And if you'd like to catch up on year one last year, then you can check out our annual report and end of year webinar. I'm Jess, I'm from the Natural History Museum, which is where I am today, and I'm going to kick off the webinar with a few highlights from this term. We're then going to hear from my colleague Victoria about some of the science, and then from Rachel and James from St Mary's Secondary School in Newcastle, and then finally from Fiona, our North Regional Team Lead from Royal Horticultural Society, which is our main partner organisation. If you've got any questions, then please put them in the chat, and then Laura from the museum and Holly from RHS will answer them as we go, rather than at the end. And we're recording this webinar, and it will be posted in the news section of the Nature Park website, where you can find lots of other recordings of previous webinars as well. So for those who like numbers, we are now at over 4,000 schools, nurseries and colleges that have registered for the Nature Park. And as you can see here, nearly half of those, so over 1,800 have put themselves onto the Nature Park map, and they're now a green and glowing dot. So thank you very much, everybody who's done that. You are now part of this globally important, massive science project. We're now at over 3.2 million square metres of habitats mapped. And so that's using all our flow charts and digital tools to map the habitats on your site. So if, like me, you're struggling to visualise how big an area that is, as you can see here, we've equated that to 2,400 Olympic-sized swimming pools. So that's a big area, and schools are one of the most under-recorded urban habitat types, so that's a significant area to contribute to science, and they're spread all across the country. So some general highlights from this term. So we kicked off year two with Hidden Nature Week in October, and we saw children and young people across the country making over 4,000 observations using the Hidden Nature Challenge digital activity. And lots of Nature Park schools were filmed taking part in that activity for ITV Regional News. So if you featured in that, that's brilliant, you've been on TV. And if you haven't done that activity yet, the Hidden Nature Challenge, really recommend it. It's a great first step to getting out, exploring your grounds, however small, however grey, it doesn't matter, there'll be something to spot. And then photos of observations, they could feature at the museum in London and RHS Gardens later this year. We also launched the Nature Park Schools Forum, and that saw pupils and their teachers from 7 primary, middle and secondary schools from across England taking part in sessions at the museum and online to develop a set of principles that will guide future development of the Nature Park. So thank you to those schools who took part in that. So now a few highlights from some schools that have been doing Nature Park. So here we have Bankwood Primary School in Sheffield. They've been out and about exploring their school grounds with our Yorkshire Regional Team, known as Gen Squared, because they're both called Gen. Pupils were thrilled to see all the hidden signs of nature, and they had fun taking part in the Hidden Nature Challenge that I mentioned before. Students at Beaumont School in St Albans were planting mini orchards and hedgerows to create wildlife corridors in their school grounds. That sounds brilliant. And then Alumwell Nursery School in Walsall, they mapped their habitats, as you can see there, in their nursery grounds to help understand their starting point, so to have a baseline and to figure out which areas of their grounds they should now focus on. So great work there from those 3 settings, and lots more been going on. There's just a few highlights. So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Victoria Burton now, who's going to tell us a little bit about the science so far this term.
Okay, thanks, Jess. So, yeah, we've had a busy term. We've had 461 new sites. Welcome to the Nature Park. And so we have a rota between us in the community science team, having a check of these, making sure they're nice and accurate because they are scientific data in their own right. And we're always really impressed by these because they're always really high, really neat, tidy, and completely enveloping the site. So always really impressed by that. Also welcomed a A-level work experience student to the museum earlier in the term, and he interviewed me on some of the analysis that I've been doing on the habitat data and my plans for that as well, and that's all been written up in a blog. So do take a look at that. It's really useful to find out all the data you've been collecting, how I'll be using that, and the difference you'll be making by everything you're collecting on your school grounds. And finally, on an even bigger scale, Professor Andy Purvis, researcher at the museum and actually my PhD supervisor, he travelled all the way to Colombia to present at the COP16, the Biodiversity COP. So that's the Conference of the Parties, big get-together with lots of different countries all over the world. And he was on 2 panels there representing the nature park. And so many people there were amazed at the work that Nature Park's been doing, sort of getting so many schools, colleges and nurseries together, mapping their site and looking at the biodiversity on that and making real changes. So much excitement all over the world for the Nature Park and what you're doing. So, and it was fantastic to get kind of news of the Nature Park out to a global audience. So yeah, so that's some little bit of what we've been doing on the science side this term, and now I can pass over to Rachel and James from St Mary's to see what's been happening on the schools.
Hi, afternoon, everyone. We came across the National Education Nature Park by chance as we actually received an email to the school mentioning an event that was taking place. Now, we'd always wanted to do something environment based and had tried to get students interested in planting flowers and other things. But once the planting was done, we found that our students had lost interest. So when we saw the National Education Nature Park and the varieties of activities that we could do, we felt that this was something that we had to start up and use in our school. So we launched the group, which we called the Wilding Group, with the whole school asking for students who were interested to come along to a meeting. 15 students from across year 7 to year 13, so from age 11 to age 18, signed up and we had our initial meeting. We discussed the plan of what they would like to do and what differences they would like to see in our school. We used the map to have a look at all the green space around where the school was and thought about what we would find there in terms of various wildlife. So this then led us to wanting to map our own school site. Now, this was something that was very practical, and our students really loved to do this. And they also could see the map growing as they went along and they mapped the different parts of the school ground. So our group meets every Friday, and we go into a nice rhythm of having lunch together first, for about the first 15 or 20 minutes or so, and then setting off together to map the school grounds. The students then chose the areas that were to map and each day, and they were very precise, especially about the trees that we have on our school site.
Yeah, hi everyone. So just to carry on from what James has explained of what we do so far here, the students do meet every Friday. They're in a great routine for having their lunch together. We have found that now we've mapped the site, we've been able to identify areas of our school grounds which may be beneficial to wildlife. So this year we've got the students to build some hedgehog houses. We've put some bird feeders out as well. The students have chosen where these go in our school grounds. We've also invested in some wildlife cameras, which we put out at the end of the school day, and they're out over all weekend, and then we collect them back in every morning. And the students themselves have done this. They've really got into a routine of going to check the feeders, filling them up, check the hedgehog houses, collecting the cameras. They're in a very good rota system, which works really, really well. Whilst the students are eating their lunch on a Friday, it's really lovely. They get a sneak preview at all the footage that we collect, and before then it's sent out to the rest of the school. So it's another bit of an incentive that they can come and they actually see unedited versions of all of the wildlife that we've got, from squirrels, birds, fox, hedgehog. So they do really like that as well. And we're very blessed as well. There's a member of staff in our school who is very kindly putting the videos together. So he edits them, he's put on a front cover to each one, and then we send them out every week to the school, and they're shown in tutor groups so that we're sort of building the message about the wildlife that we have, all of the impact that we can make. So that's going out across the school, which is absolutely fantastic. As we're getting into winter, we've sort of found it a little bit harder, and we've really sort of decided, okay, well, where do we want the group to go? So we've had a look at the Education Park website and all the activities. We've chosen the vision. The students have written their own vision about what they want to do next. And we're also going to start looking at a little bit more about the wildlife we have. How can we fully support them, the needs that they have, the food, etc. So we're kind of in the planning stage for what it is we're going to do when the weather gets better. And that is what we've been doing here. So I think I hand over to Fiona.
Yes, thanks, Rachel and James. Thanks for sharing all that, and it's lovely to have you along, especially because you're one of our schools up here in Northeast England. So we spotted you, your habitat mapping on the map, so immediately made contact with you when we saw that. So well done. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm Fiona Greenwald. I'm the Senior Programme Officer in North East England, and across the country we've got regional officers, little teams to support schools on their nature park journey, and we're just about got the whole country covered. We've got our new officers in the southeast and southwest starting in the new year in January. So we'll have regional officers across the whole country. So we're really excited about that. I'm just going to have a little chat with you just now to maybe come have a few ideas of things you can do over the spring term, which starts in the winter. Just got a few ideas to help you have things to look for if you go outside. I just want to draw your attention to the Nature Park Planner, and then there's a few specific nature park activities that are suitable to do over the winter time, and a few sort of seasonal gardening and outdoor jobs that you might want to think about. So whilst this picture is a bit seasonal and setting the scene, and we are all thinking about kind of hunkering down for winter, nature is actually all ready for the spring already. So if we could just go on to the next slide, I'll just got a few things to perhaps go out and spot in your school grounds. I just really encourage you to just go out and have a look around. Without even too much structure, perhaps just go and have a little explore. It's nice to just look around and be out, and it links into just sort of developing a sense of well-being, noticing nature, taking time to just notice things a little bit more closely and think about what's happening in nature at that time of year. In the top left-hand picture there, that's some alder catkins, which if you even went out now, you would see that they're already formed. They'd be sitting in bud, all tightly wrapped up. That picture's maybe been taken round about March or April when they've started to open up. But already on hazel trees and alder trees, which are often plants found in school grounds, you could go out now and spot those catkins already formed. Just like the buds of the leaves, nature's all ready to go in the springtime. A nice activity is to do some winter twig idents and spotting the different buds. It's amazing when you just take the time to look closely. You can see all the different bud shapes and forms and begin to recognise the different species. And there are links on our Nature Park website to get materials to help you with that winter twig ident. So have a go, just exploring and taking time, looking closely at the buds and getting to recognise some of the trees and shrubs in your grounds. It's also a nice time to do it because that's when the plants are their quietest, if you like. So if you get to know them in the winter, you've just started to notice them and then follow how they develop over the year. Obviously, early years are doing lots of spotting seasonal change, but this is a nice thing to do for any age group and is just helps you engage with the plants around your school grounds. Another idea is just to go out and spot colours. We think of winter being dull and dark and drab, but again, once you just slow down and just take time to notice, you'll be surprised at how many colours you can spot in nature. Often schools have this shrub with the green and red stems, a cornice, and they're commonly found in school grounds, and they are absolutely gorgeous on a lovely sunny day. The colours just really sing out in the middle of winter. So you're quite likely to have something like that in your school grounds, but just take a bit of time to look closely and you'll be surprised at what you see. And really, when you think about it, we're talking about the spring term, so we start that in January in the depths of winter. It's dark, but by the end of that term in March, spring has actually started. So before you know it, the blossom will be appearing. We'll obviously have bulbs and things starting to pop up like snowdrops and daffodils and crocuses. So nature doesn't hang around, and just I'm encouraging you to just to go out and engage with it over the sort of winter and early spring term. And thank you, Sophia. The Nature Park Planner is a great tool. If you haven't spotted it, you can find it on the website. Just go to the search bar and search for the Nature Park Planner. You can download it. Might be an idea to perhaps print it out on A3 paper and get it up on your wall. And it's just that little prompt helping you to plan what you're doing in the nature park over the year. Obviously, we're connected with nature and the seasons, so at certain times, some activities are better done at certain times of years than other. So each term has got its own page, and they're split into the sort of first half term and the second half term with sort of ideas for activities that you might want to look at during that half term. So it's a really lovely and useful resource to have as part of the nature park. Thank you. So go on to the next slide. Thanks. And just a few sort of specific things that you can do. So we really want you to do your habitat mapping. This is really important, and it feeds into the citizen science and the data that we're collecting about the nature park. And when we have the data, that can be a voice for nature. Nature can't speak for itself, but if we've got the facts and figures, it helps us be a voice for nature. So getting the data and getting the accurate data is really important. And as Victoria said, we've been really impressed with how accurately schools are mapping their sites. So if you've started, we want you to continue. If you've not started, then we really would encourage you to have a think about that and get going. And there are some habitats that you can map during this quieter time of year. We would suggest probably not doing the grassland habitat mapping because many of those plants will be dormant just now. So when you do your exploring of that habitat, you wouldn't get an accurate result at this time of year. But some of the other habitats it's perfectly okay to do them in the winter time. So some of the groups you could look at are ground without plants, which is your grey areas, the hard standing slabs, things like that, where there isn't anything growing anyway. So that's not going to change seasonally. So you can go out and explore that and decide on exactly which areas of your school grounds come under that habitat. You can explore your tree habitats and do the field work for the tree habitats. Again, that connects in with looking at the twigs in winter time, and you can easily spot deciduous and evergreen, which is something that you look at as part of that habitat mapping. So that's a good one to do in the winter. The activities, the field work around hedges and bushes is also suitable to do in the winter time, and decide on what you've got in your school grounds looking at that habitat. And vertical features is another one that you can look at over the winter time. When you do come to the digital mapping, it's best to map the large areas first. So if you've not already done your grassland areas, we would say don't map your hedges and bushes digitally until you've mapped your large grassland areas, if the hedges and bushes are on top of that, because when you do the mapping, it's best to do it in those layers, do the large areas first, and then map the other features on top of that. But you can, as I say, over the winter time, do the field work around these habitats and work with the learners where they decide what habitats they've got in their school. So you've got the information ready to go to do the mapping in the spring once you've looked at your grasslands as well. And a few other activities on the box on the right-hand side. So if you put any of these titles into the website in the search bar, you'll be able to go straight to those activities where all the information and descriptions about the activities are there, ready to guide you through doing them. So a couple of nice ones to do outside are the colour collecting and the 3D modelling. Even in the winter you can do them. The colour collecting's a lovely activity to do. I always find it quite a mindful thing, and it simply involves getting some double-sided sticky tape on a bit of card or paper and going out, exploring your grounds, just slowing down, looking carefully, collecting tiny bits of nature with as many different colours. Or you could give your learners a theme, like perhaps look for as many greens as possible or as many greys as possible. It's a really flexible, adaptable activity, and it's actually one that's really lovely to do at different times of year and repeat it over and over again, and just see, you could collect up a little bank of different coloured little colour cards as you went through the year. It's a really nice thing to do. And 3D modelling at the bottom is also an easy activity to do outside in the winter, just exploring your school grounds and asking the learners to use natural materials to make models of perhaps a little area of your school grounds that you're looking at, and deciding on how it's used or how it could be used better or how they would like to change it. So it's really just using natural materials to make simple models of your school grounds, and provides a bit of a talking point and a discussion point as well, and maybe stimulates ideas of how you might like things to change. And then the 3 activities, the vision statement, whole school engagement, and ideas for improvement, are things that you might do indoors. So it's a good time to perhaps, if you've got a smaller group or just 1 or 2 classes involved in it, perhaps you could do a bit of campaigning over the winter through some whole school engagement. Maybe your Nature Park team might do a presentation to the senior leadership or an assembly, maybe do some surveys across the other classes, and just promote that idea of the whole school being involved in the decision making around the nature park, and collating ideas and suggestions. And these activities, like the vision statement and ideas for improvement and whole school engagement, can link in with English targets, where you've got perhaps presentation skills, persuasive writing, collaboration, communication, they could be woven into some of your English lessons perhaps. So do have a little look at them on the website. And I just want to point out the zines activity, which is nice as well. So zines it's like short for magazines, and it's about making little homemade magazines. All the instructions are on the website. So you use things like old magazines and newspapers and cut out different pictures and words and make your own little booklet in a way. It could take the form of a campaigning type of booklet where your learners is obviously, you know, up to the learners what they want to do. They might want to campaign about why nature is important or why you should join the nature park. It could be a little information booklet. You might have a learner who's particularly keen on centipedes or something and collects just lots of information and uses a creative approach to document the information they found out about centipedes. So, or it could be something more reflective or collaborative. So have a look at that one. It's a nice activity that you can do indoors as well over the winter. So hopefully that's a few ideas to carry on with in the winter time with the nature park, and then a few just sort of ideas around practical maybe gardening outdoor tasks. Everyone thinks about doing their garden in the spring and the summer, but actually planting, the best time of year from a gardener's point of view to do planting is actually the autumn. The soil's warm and you're going into the wetter season, so you don't have to worry about watering. So getting planting done over the winter is a really good idea. The plants are dormant on the top, if you like, but under the ground, those little root hairs and adventitious roots are just starting to grow, even despite it being cold. So over the winter, the plants sort of get their feet in. So by the time it comes to springtime, they're ready to go and they've adapted to the local conditions. Often you're planting plants that have come from a nursery or a garden centre where they've been getting watered as their needs arise. Once they're out in the ground, they've got to sort of look after themselves. So planting over the winter is a great time to do that, to allow the plants to settle in. And it's the tree planting season specifically for this reason, because the trees, once they start growing, have a high water demand, and planting them in the spring and the summer, often that's not met. So ideally any trees you want planted sort of by the end of February, beginning of March. There's a couple of little caveats to that though. Don't plant and don't cultivate the soil when it's actually soaking wet. When you do that, you break down the soil structure, which is sort of the arrangement of the soil particles. So don't actually work the soil when it's very wet, and don't plant when the ground, or work it when it's sort of frozen or frosty or snowy. Again, it just destroys the soil structure, and the plants, if you planted in cold, frosty ground like that, you would damage what roots that are there. But even now, you can actually do a bit of seed sowing and some great things to get on with even just in January. Things like broad beans, peas, sweet peas, onions, they can all be started in the middle of winter. And especially if you've got like a polytunnel out in the cold, they're okay. You can plant broad beans outdoors as well. So there are things you can do right in January. Chitting potatoes is just getting them sort of sitting in little egg boxes on a windowsill. Round about March, you might want to do that towards the end of next term. And because potatoes can't stand the frost, it just means you get them started early in the season. So you've got them indoors and they've started that burst into life journey. So when you plant them out in April, you've got a good start and you've got making the most of the growing season. and you might have some other gardening jobs like a bit of winter pruning. It's a great time if you do have anything like a polytunnel or a shed to do a good bit of cleaning and tidying, and just keep, you know, work on your sort of the hygiene of the environment to stop pests and diseases getting established. And it's a great time as well, grabbing some seed catalogues or looking online and making plans and just thinking about the coming year, whether that's from a gardening point of view or a nature and biodiversity point of view. It's a nice time to just stop and reflect on things. So get ready to do your habitat mapping if you've not started it, and if you have started it, perhaps you can make a little bit more progress over the next half term. And just another little activity you might want to join in with, which is a lovely national citizen science project, is the Big Garden Bird Watch. There's a schools version of that for the end of January. And again, it's just helping your learners start to notice what's in your school grounds and begin to think about how you can support nature in your school grounds. So even if you saw no birds, negative or zero data is a good thing as well, because then you can start asking the questions around why did we see no birds, and then what could we do to change that. So that's a few thoughts from me about ideas for next term, and I'm going to hand back over to Jess.
Thank you so much, Fiona. Lots of food for thought there, lots of things to be getting on with. So anyone who thought this was the time to down tools, clearly not. Can see quite a few questions in the chat. Do keep them coming in while we're still on air, so that Laura and Holly can reply. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to Rachel and James. Brilliant to hear about your students self-organising with your support. So thank you very much for enabling them to do that. I know that's not easy. And also great to hear about the tutor groups across the school to embed. That's brilliant, and I think it'd be a good sort of tip for others to try that. And also very heartening to hear that you've been using the Nature Park resources, and in particular using them to plan ahead. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Victoria, for the science update. I think it's a really good reminder to people here that you and your students are part of this big, real live science project, and you're collaborating with scientists in the museum and beyond. Really important work. So do take a good look at our website. You heard it referenced a few times. So we've got various news and blog posts there that can give inspiration. There's also, just to mention, we've got lots and lots of curriculum linked resources for climate and nature and sustainability in general. So they cover various subjects. It's a growing library across key stages. We keep adding. There's things there that we've created for delivering Nature Park that come from our organisations and also third parties. They've been quality assured by Royal Meteorological Society, any references to climate science, and there's a really great library there to dip into to suit what you need. When you're on the website, you might see there's a pop-up and a banner, because we're doing an online survey at the moment, and we're constantly improving the website, making it as accessible as possible. And there's a very quick 5-minute online survey to get people's thoughts on the structure. So it'd be super helpful if you do have a moment to quickly do that. And then in the spring, we're hoping to do some one-to-one interviews with some teachers, particularly to focus on the resource library section. So if you hear about that, it'll probably come around through the email newsletter, and we'll be recruiting, then it'd be great to hear from you. So as we've got on the slide here, if you've got any further questions, there's the email address for our mailbox, the hello@ email address. And if you go onto that web link, which I think will be in the chat in a minute if it isn't already, you can find all the mailboxes for the different regional teams that Fiona mentioned. So we've got nearly all regions already covered, and we've got the Southeast and Southwest coming on board soon in the new year. So you can reach out to them for support. And also we are always looking for case studies for schools like St Mary's to come and join us for webinars and events like this, and to share things that we can publish on the website to give inspiration to others and create a kind of network, a compendium of tips and inspiration and ideas. So I think I can hear some busy typing in the background, so I don't know if there's still some questions to be answered, but we are coming up to the end of our time. So thank you so much for giving up the time to join us on this busy time, getting to the end of the school term, really long term as well. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to all our contributors and everybody behind the scenes as well on the webinar. And have a lovely evening, and look forward to seeing you again in the spring.